Hey guys, Eli here, and today I want to talk about a question I get asked all of the time, which is how do you find your photographers, the employees that I have that shoot real estate for me? One thing that often happens when people get into real estate is they realize that everything I talk about in my other videos is true, and real estate is something that you can scale pretty quickly. So at first they get clients, they grow their business, and then very quickly on they realize, okay, I cannot do this all myself, I need to hire somebody. But that is where so many people get stuck. So on this video, I want to share a little bit with you about what I've learned when it comes to hiring photographers, finding photographers to hire in the first place, training them, and everything you'd need to know if you're at the point where your business has gotten big enough where it starts to make sense to hire someone to take some of those shoots off your plate, buy some time back, and keep your business growing. So let's start from the very beginning with the first thing you're going to need to do, which is actually find the photographer to hire. So at my business, at the start, we pretty much just hired people we knew through mutual connections. So obviously my first hire was Aaron, and that's when we changed our company to Norman & Young. But then we started to hire additionally past that, and we hired someone that my mom happened to run into who she thought would be a great fit. I'd been telling her for a while that, hey, I'm looking to hire somebody. And then we hired that guy, of course, and then we hired his friend. And I don't think that was the best way to do things, but it did get us photographers who had a mutual connection at the company, which I think made them care a little bit more about the company at the start because they had some reputation to uphold there. And also the person that recommended them wanted to ensure their success as well. So that's what we did at the start. I think that is a great idea for your first couple hires, is to hire somebody you know, and you can vouch for their character a little bit. You have a little bit more information on them. But eventually, that's going to run out. So what we do now is just post a job listing on generic sites like Indeed.com. And that's not the hard part. When you post a listing on Indeed, especially for a photographer position, you're going to get a ton of applications. And that's good, but that's where a lot of people go wrong. They say, oh, great, there's people, let's interview a couple and let's hire one. One of the biggest mistakes I've ever made was not interviewing enough people. And so now it doesn't always work out perfectly like this, but we prefer to interview anywhere between 5 and 10 people per hire we make. That means that we take 10 candidates and we pick the 10% of the best candidates that apply to get the job. Now, just because we hire them in the first place doesn't mean they last here long term. We have a 30-day period when they first start working for us where we really get to know them. One of the things I believe, and it's not just something I believe, it's something other more successful people say as well, which is hiring is guessing, firing is knowing. And what that means to me is that despite how many people I interview, despite how good I think I might be at interviewing, it's not ultimately what's going to tell me if someone is a good person or not and someone fits with my company. The first 30 days does that much better than any interview. So we get them in for the first 30 days. And that kind of covers the specifically where to find them process and what we did. Now, when it comes to actually once they're hired in the training process, there's a big difference between your first employee that you hire and then like your fifth. And what I always tell people is the first employee is the most important employee you'll hire. Because what you've done so far in your business to get to the point where you can hire is you've gotten people to trust you. Your clients trust you, and that's why they hire you. They trust that you're going to shoot good photos. They trust that you're going to show up. They trust that you're going to do everything you do. And so what you're having to do with that first hire is take them from, hey, I trust Eli, to I trust Eli's process. And that's a big mental shift. A lot of your clients will think that the reason your photos are good is because of you, but that's not the case. It's your process. And so that first hire, you want to first make sure you pick a very good quality candidate, someone that works with your clients well, someone that shares the values you do in terms of customer service, and that way it's an easier transition. And over time, especially as you slowly integrate that first candidate, I recommend, with the first one, spending a month or two or maybe more to train them. Have them shadow you, have them slowly meet your clients, have your clients slowly get to see them doing more and more. Don't just make the switch instantly because your clients don't yet trust that you're not the secret. You need them to trust that your process is the secret. And if you do that properly with that first employee, you'll remove that barrier. The second, the third, the fourth, the 10th, the 20th employee is much, much easier because your clients already trust that you are not the secret. And that's one of the biggest things that I learned. And the thing that I think I did pretty well actually, but not because I meant to, is I took way too long when Aaron first came here before I just let him go do shoots by himself. And we really built that relationship up slowly. So those are my thoughts around hiring. What I would say on the other side of things, which when you become a business owner who has employees, there's the hiring stage, but there's also the firing stage. To add on one more mistake I made in regards to sort of HR at Norman & Young is there were employees that I knew weren't going to make it long term, but I waited way too long to move them on. Nobody At least the people I hang around likes firing people. That's just not something that's super awesome because you're obviously having to break some pretty bad news to someone. And usually it's not anything to do with something they're doing wrong. It's just that they don't fit or they don't act in ways that work with your company or don't fit with your company culture or something like that. So you're going to have to make that. And I would encourage you to, if you feel like someone is not the right fit, you're getting a ton of mistakes, someone just doesn't have their head in the right place. For example, we hire a lot of people that are more creative people. They come to this job, they come to photography and they apply to a photography job because they're a creative person. Well, we found that the more creative the person, typically the worse they are at real estate photography because real estate photography is not very creative. It's more process driven. And so what seemed like a good candidate results in somebody who makes a lot of mistakes because their head is not focused on right now. They're thinking, there's all sorts of stuff going on that's not focused on the details, which there's a general saying that the more creative you are, the less detail oriented. And that's just an example. So keep in mind that you are going to have to move employees on. And one of the biggest mistakes I made is not doing that soon enough. If you have any more questions about how we handle hiring photographers, finding them, training them, anything like that, drop that in the comments. I answer every comment here on YouTube. And if you have a more long form question, feel free to email me at hello@repteam.com. Lastly, if you have not seen my free workshop, that is also linked in the bio. I highly encourage you to check it out, especially if you're newer to real estate photography. But even if you've been doing this a while and your business is not growing like wildfire, there's usually a couple reasons for that. And I address those in that workshop. So check out the link in the bio and I'll see you in the next video.